think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us today. My name is Paul. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. There's a mosquito in my studio. So, hey, kind of rhymes. So, if you see me, slapping something, that's what it is. There's the mosquito in here, and I am ready for, who's ready for the cooler weather to hit? Me. I am. It's too hot. Telephone number 870-275-9799. We got a great show for you coming up at the bottom of the hour. As I mentioned yesterday, we reached out to Gregory Wrightstone. We want to talk a little bit about Hurricane Dorian and everyone, what they say about climate change. And it actually is perfect timing, yet again, because last night the Democrats with CNN had a climate change panel. Pretty crazy stuff was said. Matter of fact, Bernie Sanders said that abortion is a solution to climate change. Did you hear about this? This is insane. I want to talk about it more. I mean, that's put up on the board for a reason. You understand how crazy this is? You understand how evil this is just on the basis of how it devalues human life? That abortions help fight climate change. How are we any different from those that used to worship Baal and sacrifice their kids so that the rain would come and their crops would be better? And it was actually, if you look up some of the people write about Baal worship, how part of the worship was these immoral, let's just call them, for the kids at home, rituals between men and women that would produce the kids, and then you'd have to sacrifice them because you couldn't actually feed them because it was a sick cycle. And it's like, well, maybe our crops will do better. Anyway, all I'm saying is this isn't the first time in human history that killing children has been connected to the idea of controlling the weather. And that is what the left is now worshiping in a way, Gaia worship, the earth. But they are actually saying, if you get right down to it, they're saying that if you do X, Y, and Z, if you do what we say, which typically their ideas now have to, they're always socialism. Socialism is the solution. But if you do X, Y, and Z, this socialist policy or that socialist policy, then you will you'd be safer. There will be less tornadoes, less hurricanes, because we will have effectively learned how to control the weather. That's crazy, folks. That is absolutely insane. Telephone number again, 870-275-9799. Okay, what do we got here? Let's go for. I'm going to get to the audio of that here in a minute, but let's go first to what happened to the officer. That was, he was in that on-duty shooting a couple of months ago. This had to do. Remember this? You had the officer that had stopped the guy in a stolen car. He was holding him at gunpoint and telling him to get out of the car. And the officer then shot the man after he started moving, trying to drive off. And the officer was then struck by the car, but it was kind of after he stepped in front of the car. And, yeah, it was certainly not. But the driver, the deceased, didn't listen to anything the officer had to say and just tried to take off. Well, anyway, so this guy's been fired. by a Little Rock police officer. This officer Starks is his name. Been fired, and he's been going through the appeal process because he thinks he was wrongly terminated. Well, yesterday, the city of Little Rock took action, and they upheld his firing in a unanimous voice vote. It's the Little Rock Civil Service Commission. And there were, I mean, if you read this whole article, who wrote this article? Clara Turnage. If you read this whole article on the front page of the Gazette this morning, you're thinking, well, there's a lot of subtext here, I guess. I mean, you have this officer, again, Charles Starks. He was fired back in May. He's appealing this decision. There was, again, a stolen vehicle. The man's name that was that was killed has a last name of Bradley Blackshire. Okay, he was the one driving the car that was stolen. Was shot 8 times during this traffic stop, killing him. Blackshire, who was driving a stolen vehicle, struck Starks twice with the vehicle, injuring the officer's knee. More than a dozen witnesses testified in the 15-hour, 2-day hearing, which began on July 25th and continued Wednesday. After more than 7 hours of testimony and an hour of deliberation Wednesday, the commission, in a voice vote, upheld the decision to maintain the status, meaning he's fired. Starks is fired. He's going to appeal it again from what this report says that I read earlier. But there's a lot of subtext, like the commission doesn't like that the police officers and the police department doesn't seem to trust their judgment about this firing. Really? This is in the paper. The insinuation that police officers don't trust the Little Rock Civil Services Commission. Well, yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, the bottom line is this. I mean, these police officers are out there, and they're doing work that is dangerous. Yes, and they have to maintain, they're there to protect and serve. They've got to maintain the citizens' civil rights, all of that stuff. But when you are in a stolen vehicle and the police officer's in pursuit, and he comes up to you and he tells you to get out of the car, who here is going to say no? I mean, to me, it's just a completely different, I don't know, just a different perspective, I guess. I mean, I think most people say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm getting out of the car right now. You don't put the car in drive and attempt to leave. That's not going to work out. But there's also allegations in this report that the mayor of Little Rock, Frank Scott Jr., pressured the Little Rock Police Department to kind of do this investigation, come to the conclusion. The insinuation is that he really wanted this guy, Officer Starks, fired because this didn't look good, right? You have a black guy in the car being shot by a white police officer, where he, steps in front of the car awkwardly, gets on the hood of the vehicle and shoots Bradley Blackshire. Listen to this. As a last-minute rebuttal witness, the police department's attorney called to the witness stand Assistant Chief Wayne Bewley, who was the interim chief at the time of Blackshire's death. Bewley testified that Scott had not asked if Starks could be immediately fired to insinuate that the officer should be, but rather because the mayor had only recently taken office and did not understand how internal investigations work. It was him getting some education from me, who was in the place of interim chief at the time. The pressure that the mayor put on me was, we have to get the video released. I said, in order for us to get this released, we have to get a file done. The mayor was very adamant about wanting to release the dash cam video for transparency. Retired Sergeant James Stevens, the officer who completed the internal investigation into the shooting, said Bewley told him Scott wanted the internal file completed quickly. Chief Bewley told me that, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but the mayor's office wanted this completed quickly. He cautioned the mayor that he needed to let due process take its course. That's basically why I was told to rush it up. Now, this did not sit well with the city government. This idea that the mayor wanted to take shortcuts when due process is concerned about this officer Starks who was involved in this. The city did not like that because towards the end of the proceedings, again before the voice vote came out where they uphold Officer Stark's firing, he is still fired. They didn't like the insinuation. Okay. In the city's closing arguments, attorney K.M. Eddings did not focus on whether Starks had violated department policy, but instead tried to convince commissioners that the mayor had not influenced the investigation. Quote, they wanted you all to believe that the mayor wanted him fired without due process and that he was going to go out and find a police chief that would fire him, Eddings said. The fact of the matter is there hasn't been one witness here with one shred of support for that allegation, and I think that's unfair to the mayor. Well, the allegation has now been put in the newspaper, so way to accomplish your goal there. Because now we're all speculating about it, where in the past maybe we wouldn't have been. Throughout the hearing, attorneys played and replayed video footage from the shooting. Every time they replayed the video more than 5 times, Blackshire's mother, Kimberly Blackshire, looked down and away from the screen. She put her hand over her face and closed her eyes tight. So Blackshire's family was in the courtroom. They were, if you call this a courtroom, but they were in the room. They were very happy with the decision that he remained fired. And this is pretty, I mean, listen, I understand. I mean, I can't imagine being the family of the deceased here in this situation, you know. But, I mean, this is what they say at the end here. Some witnesses said they would have not approached the car in the same way. Others said they saw nothing wrong with how Starks treated a potentially violent situation. Stevens testified that while it was not wrong, Starks should not have moved in front of the vehicle, saying the former officer placed himself in more danger than had he stepped to the other side. Quote, he was reasonable in his perception that the guy might have had a gun, but he put himself in danger of 2 deadly force situations. At the end of the hearing, a cheering, laughing crowd of Blackshire's family and friends walked out of City Hall, its members hugging on the sidewalk. Smaller crowd of Stark's relatives and supporters filed out using a back stairwell, followed by police guards. You know, I mean, this is. I want to know what you think. What do you think about this situation? I mean, I know there's listeners of this show that have completely different perspectives on this. I mean, they think Officer Starks. Some people think Officer Starks, you know, messed up. I mean, was it a perfect stop? Absolutely not. No. There were some people that have said, you know, look, the officer should have identified that the car was stolen, but instead he came up and just told the man to, you know, just told him to get out of the car, get out of the car, get out of the car. And then the guy puts the car in drive when a gun is pulled on him and attempts to pull away. The officer steps to the left in front of the car and then opens fire. Or he might have shot one time before that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this is totally in the heat of the moment, and you know we live certainly in a society now where the perception of hands up, don't shoot is something that people think actually happened with Michael Brown. You know that actually happened. Hands up, don't shoot was a myth, and there is on the other hand, there's no point that there's I'm sorry, and on the other hand, there's no question that there is segment of our population, the African American community, that have a total mistrust of police officers. There are historical examples that support that mistrust. Yeah? But again, I mean, I don't know in what world. I mean, it would have to be like a Mad Max dystopia for me to have a police officer outside my car door telling me to get out of the car with his gun and me not do that and me not follow those orders. I mean, you know, it would have to, we'd have to be in, I mean, we wouldn't be in a civil society, I'll tell you that much. Let me know what you think. What do you think about this? Officer Starks is fired. That firing has been maintained. Yesterday, a long, drawn-out process. Emotions are high. Tensions are high. What do you think happened? What do you think is the appropriate outcome here? What kind of message does this send to police officers who are putting their lives on the line every single day? Let me know what you think. 870-275-9799. We're going to take a break, going to reset, be back here in just a moment. To remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com. He covers legal news in Washington as the D.C. Business of Law reporter at the National Law Journal, American lawyer, and ALM Media. He previously worked as the Washington Examiner Supreme Court reporter, and he's covered national political news as a Robert Novak Journalism Fellow at the Fund for American Studies, as a William F. Buckley Jr. Fellow in Political Journalism at the National Review. Folks, his name is Ryan Lovelace. He joins us now. Ryan, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're the author of this book, Search and Destroy, Inside the Campaign Against Brett Kavanaugh. Sir, what made you want to write this?
Well, I really thought there were some unanswered questions coming out of the hearings of Justice Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court just about a year ago. And I knew that I knew some things that other people didn't know, and I wanted to share that. You know, really going into it, I expected the typical advice and consent process that had undergone previous nominations, whether it was, you know, one from President Obama.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Some of your comments. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the firing of a Little Rock police officer who was involved in a deadly shooting while on duty. They were in pursuit. They had tracked this stolen car using cameras. They knew it was stolen, and so they carefully intercepted. They waited. I mean, they could have chased the car. They could have tried to pull it. No, they watched this car pull into a parking lot, and they waited, you know, for the car to back up, and then the police officer, Little Rock Police Department, you know, closed in, and that's when Officer Starks drew his gun and told the driver to get out of the car. The driver put the car in drive and tried to drive off and was shot, and then the car was moving forward, and the officer ended up on the hood of the car and then, you know, discharged his weapon. I think shot him 8 times. So he is now, he was fired for that. He was fired for that. And, it's not lost on me. It's not lost on this audience either. The amount of people who are comparing this to Baltimore, you've got police officers in Baltimore that have recently been captured on film where people are throwing water on them, disrespecting them. Some people are saying that Little Rock may be on, for example, Gene on Facebook. Are the criminals dumping water on Little Rock police officers yet? Seriously, how is Little Rock different from New York City and the swamp? Christine on Facebook. It's really easy to be an armchair police officer. Criminals have more rights than police and get to disregard lawful orders. Outrageous. Woods on Facebook writes, same, I guess that's in agreement with me. It looks like you do your job and get fired. So, like as a police officer, do your job, you're going to get fired for it. Just a few of your comments here. Christine also, we can't have lawless disregard for law and order. Little Rock is going to end up like Baltimore, where good officers walk away. Gene writing this. If the police officer had taken no action and the driver subsequently committed mass murder, what would the Little Rock politicians do to the cop then? Meaning, if Officer Starks had this guy held at gunpoint, was telling him to get out of a stolen vehicle, okay, so he is the suspect of grand theft, a suspect of it, but if this guy were to, if officer would have allowed him to pull out of that parking lot, who knows what else he would have done. My point is, I'm not saying he would have. I'm just saying you don't know. And so these are all things that have got to be going through the officer's mind at the time. Stuff that we don't even think about on a day-to-day basis. Which, by the way, that's one of the reasons why law enforcement has my respect generally, is because the job, those aspects of the job just would really just, to be honest, it makes the job very unappealing. Very unappealing. Let's see here. Christine, so people driving stolen cars should just be allowed to keep going with impunity. That's interesting. Yeah, what do you do there? You just let them drive off? That's a great, it's a good point that's being made here. Obviously, no one wishes for loss of life. No one wishes for that. Keep the conversation going. Let me know. I know there are some people out there that think that the shooting was not justified at all. Officer shouldn't have done what he did, made mistakes. Certainly it certainly was not a perfect encounter, the approach and everything else. If you talk to police officers, they'll tell you, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done this or done that. But still, I'm sorry. Like, what person is not going to comply with an order to get out of the car? If you've just pulled into a parking lot, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of police cars. Anyway, telephone number is 870-275-9799. We got a lot of good news. Well, we got a lot of news to get to. It's good because I like to cover the news. We've got Russellville Casino update. We've got, speaking of casinos, there's now a proposal to put coin run slot machines in convenience stores here in Arkansas. Barack Obama's brother made a tweet. We'll tell you about that. We'll tell you how Bernie Sanders believes that abortion can help stop climate change. Ocasio-Cortez is saying that climate change, she said this. Where's the tweet? Why can't I see the tweet? Anyway, she basically said we either decarbonize or let people die. Well, those are two choices I'd rather not have. Matter of fact, we're going to be talking with Gregory Wrightstone, who has got a great book called Inconvenient Facts. We'll let you talk to Gregory here in just a moment. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding.
Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Like Merrick Garland that didn't get nominated, that didn't ultimately get confirmed, or one like Justice Gorsuch, President Trump's nominee, who did. What I found with this was there really was a search and destroy process underway when it came to Justice Kavanaugh, and it was orchestrated from the beginning, even before he was actually picked.
Now, okay, if it was orchestrated from the beginning before he's picked, that's probably because, you know, the president did put out a list during the campaign saying, hey, I'm going to select from this list. And, you know, that kind of gives people a little head start into trying to, do opposition research now, which is now a thing, you know.
It is. And what was sort of really interesting about, how this nomination even differed from the one before with Justice Gorsuch, who was also on President Trump's list, ultimately, was that last time around, it was more of a spur of the moment type thing. But this time, a week before Kavanaugh.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. As always, want to welcome back. We've got Gregory Wrightstone with us, the author of Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Gregory, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning to you.
It's always great to have you on. I'd like to talk just briefly about the climate summit or whatever they did last night on CNN. I don't know. Are you familiar with what they did last night on CNN?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I was on Fox News with Laura Ingraham last night, so I was forced to watch 3.5 hours of it before I had to go to the into the studio for the show. And so it wasn't, they called it a town hall. I called it the clown hall because these guys were, it's a clown car full of climate alarmist claptrap it's crazy what they believe.
Yeah. It
really is. And it just flies in the face of the true science, facts, and data. There were several. Looking at it, just about all of them. There were several things they all agreed on. They want to. Number one, they all agree we have to get off of fossil fuels. We have to move away entirely from fossil fuels. The only difference they are is how quickly they want to do it. Some want to do it by 2025, some by 2030, 2050. But they all say we have to move away from it. And nearly all of them, I think all of them, although maybe didn't state it, was they want America to transition over to 100% electric vehicles That's really what they're after. If you're going to move away from fossil fuels, you're going to have to do that. And well, just think about it. Right now, what are there? There are 4 main types of electrical sourcing that we have that provide reliable, abundant energy. And what are they? It's hydroelectric, dams, nuclear, natural gas, and coal. And we could probably throw in, they used to make electric out of oil, but there's very little of that now. So you got those 4. Well, they want to transition away from all but nuclear and hydro. And if you think there are going to be any new nuclear plants or hydroelectric dams built in the United States in the next 20 years, you better, you got to bet another thing coming. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So what they want to do is move America. They already cannot reach 100% electrification using wind and solar. Well, more 100% transition to electric cars, what's that going to do? That's going to stress the system even more with more consumption. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot, and I think they're handing
with electric vehicles, for example. I mean, where do those batteries come from? I mean,
exactly. Yeah, China, rare earth minerals from China, and I think your listeners are rational, sane individuals, aren't they?
Yes.
That are pretty well educated, and I think those people, like your listeners, can see right through this, and see these guys are just they just I think these people are handing the election to Donald Trump, and that's okay with me, but because I think the rational, sane people in the United States realize we can't get away from fossil fuels, and that's what and what's their overall objective? What is it? Their overall objective is to change the temperature of the Earth. When you say it like that, it's usually not stated that bluntly, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to change the temperature of the Earth, and they think Earth. So they think they can do that by reducing fossil fuel use and cutting carbon dioxide emissions. And it just like I told Laura last night, I said if we look at dialing back carbon dioxide emissions by 100% in the United States, the amount of temperature rise that would be averted using their own numbers would be 0.07 of a degree Fahrenheit by 2050. 0.07. How many jobs lost is that worth? I'd say 0.
Yeah.
And actually that data, I've got a new smartphone app that's pretty awesome. If you search for inconvenient facts, you can pull that thing up, and it's got this simulator where you can dial in various measurements of CO2 decreases by various percentages, and see what actually that would do to any future temperature rise. And again, that's using their own data.
And by the way, I downloaded your app. It is fantastic. So, Inconvenient.
Oh, thank you.
Inconvenient Facts. It's really good. We're talking with Gregory Wrightstone, geologist, author of Inconvenient Facts. So you mentioned they want to get completely off of fossil fuels. What they're going. I mean, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is her tweet, and this was related to Hurricane Dorian. I can already hear climate deniers screeching. It's always been like this. You're dim. No, this is about science and leadership. We either decarbonize and cut emissions, or we don't and let people die. Pretty Armageddon type philosophy coming from her.
Yeah, it's really, it's not funny. I was going to say it's funny. It's sad, but these climate alarmists now, for the first time, I see that there are 3 things they're saying that climate change, why climate change has affected Dorian and effectively created the hurricane. Number 1, they say that the number of hurricanes is increasing. Well, that's just completely false. And in fact, the NOAA data shows. I've got a chart up on my website and Facebook and LinkedIn showing landfalling hurricanes in the United States dating back to 1850 have been in a pretty significant decline. So the number are declining, and also in the satellite era since the late 70s, we see that there's been not a huge decline, but there's been a pretty steady and slight decline in the number of both tropical storms and hurricanes. The other thing they say is that intensity of the hurricanes is increasing. And in theory, climatologists that I respect, like John Christie, say that warming ocean temperatures, in theory, should lead to a slight increase in hurricane wind speeds and intensity. But in practice, we're just not recognizing that at all. Observational data says that that's not occurring. Christopher Landsey's the top NOAA hurricane, and isn't that a great name for a hurricane expert? Yeah. Christopher Landsey. It's almost as good as a geologist named Wright Stone.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But he says that, according to him, and let's just say he's right, he says that wind speeds should increase 1% to 2% in the coming years. Well, I don't think anybody on the Grand Bahamas, when the hurricane hit, could tell the difference between 142 and 144 miles per hour. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. And that's so. Any increase is negligible. And the second thing that they're talking about is that the wind speed and stalling of the hurricanes has been exacerbated by climate change and global warming. And I looked at the NOAA data yesterday. They actually have a chart of wind speeds dating back to 1850. And although Dorian was among the slowest at 1 mile per hour of the hurricanes they had listed, the bulk of the real slow ones occurred early in the 20th century, late in the 19th century. So that, we can blow what they're telling us, all three things, number, intensity, and wind speed, they're all just contradicted by actually science, facts, and data.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, and, you mentioned earlier, Gregory, that they're trying to control, like if we do X, then they can control the global temperature. But to take what Ocasio-Cortez says, I mean, they're also, like you say, they're also actually saying if we will follow their instructions, they can control the wind speeds of hurricanes. I mean, if we weren't in the 21st century, you'd think we were talking about some fantasy novel that had to do with wizards or something. I mean, they're claiming powers that are. It's just ludicrous to think that you could control the weather.
Well, unless it is, and especially they think that they're demonizing this, which should be considered a miracle molecule, and that's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is we're seeing just tremendous benefits from the Earth's ecosystems, and in correlation to that, and hence because of that, humanity's benefiting greatly from the slight rise in temperatures we've seen. The warming we've seen, thankfully, coming out of the horrific little ice age, the cold of that. We see an Earth that's prospering, thriving, and greening. And that's what I talk a lot about, are the many, and we never hear it, do we? We never hear about any benefits from rising temperatures and increasing CO2. And we're seeing that, and all they do, if we look in history's rearview mirror, let's look behind us and where we've come from. What's happened over the last 100 years to humanity and the Earth? Everything's getting better just by about every metric you look at. If you're looking at pollution, the Earth, the air and water are cleaner today and keep improving. We see life expectancy that continues to lengthen. We see that crop growth is outpacing population growth with really no end in sight. We break records year after year after year. And a lot of that's due to warming temperatures and increasing CO2. The CO2 increase is fueling crop growth with what's called CO2 fertilization effect. And the warming temperatures we see are lengthening growing seasons. We can get more plantings in, killing frost, stop earlier in the spring and arrive later in the fall. These are all really good things. We see, and they're talking about the Amazon burning, and I've got a commentary again up at the website on that, and I show a chart there just showing that the number of fires in the Amazon is just smack dab in the middle of what the average has been over the last 20 or so years.
But they're they're the lungs of the Earth, Gregory. The lungs.
Yeah,
of the
well,
Earth.
Yeah, that's what no one really knows where that came from. They're claiming 20% of the oxygen. Well, no, I've looked at some true experts that say it's somewhere between 4 and 9%, but then all the oxygen that's produced in that forest is actually then consumed by the same forest and in the nature and ecosystems of the forest. So it's a net zero for the Amazon. Not to say that we shouldn't be. I'm not endorsing burning down rainforest, but these are yearly events that occur, and we're right in the middle of the peak of this first year of September is the peak of the burning of the dry season and the fire season in the Amazon.
Wow. Gregory Wrightstone, sir, it's always great to talk to you, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and glad that you're going on great shows like Laura Ingram's on Fox News, and we'll do this again sometime. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All righty, Gregory Wrightstone, everybody. Again, author of Inconvenient Facts. We're going to make a YouTube video of this, put it up at conduitnews.com. Now, check this out real quick. I mean, let's go ahead and in keeping in this climate change conversation, can you go to the Daily Wire article? Look at this headline. Bernie Sanders, this is Ryan Saavedra. Bernie Sanders suggests funding abortions in poor countries to help fight climate change. I mean, it's really life or death. It's funny, if you compare this idea with Ocasio-Cortez, she says we either cut emissions or let people die, and yet somebody, a leader in her own party, is essentially saying, no, we need to kill babies. We need to have death to prevent climate change, to prevent the hurricanes, to prevent the tornadoes, to prevent the out-of-control weather. I could just keep going on, right? Listen to what Bernie Sanders said. It's this Twitter video at the very bottom, Joe. If you can scroll down there. They're right there. Go ahead. Bernie Sanders last night on CNN.
Welcome. Good evening. Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth. I realize this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population.
I want you to look at this woman right here. Listen to how she's answering this question. This woman is actually afraid for her life because of climate change. Think about this. This woman asking this question is actually a victim of governments around the world and scientists scaring her to death. That's what this is. This woman, seriously, is a victim of this. There are people. You remember the little girl. It was over across the pond, I think, in Great Britain, and she was. It was. I don't know if she was in some sort of. I don't know if it was a Snapchat or it was a YouTube video or something, where she was asked about climate change and lost her composure and started crying because there are young people. There are women that look like that who are going through their lives in absolute fear that the sky will fall any second. They look like a movie like Armageddon or Deep Impact or The Day After Tomorrow. They think that stuff can happen. I mean, the asteroid thing actually could happen, but the Day After Tomorrow, where all of a sudden, at once, or they look at a movie like M. Night Silly Pants, The Happening, and M. Night Silly Pants makes a movie with Mark Wahlberg. You got the honeybees, and okay, all right, use the scientific method, and they think that the plants at any moment can respond to human, the human destruction of the planet and make us kill ourselves. That's what that movie's about. Is that plants turn on, and they're afraid of the wind. And Marky Mark is, by the way, I really like Mark Wahlberg as an actor, but that movie was really bad, really, really bad. This woman is terrified. Listen to how she's asking this question. Can you go back to the beginning of this? I want you to take a listen to it. And this is really sad when you think about it.
From New Milford, Connecticut. Martha, welcome.
Good evening. Human population growth has more than doubled in the past 50 years. The planet cannot sustain this growth. I realize this is a poisonous topic for politicians, but it's crucial to face. Empowering women and educating everyone on the need to curb population growth seems a reasonable campaign to enact.
Empowering
Would you
women.
be courageous enough to discuss this issue and make it a key feature
the weather
of a
is
plan
really
to
phallic
address climate
in its
catastrophe?
actions.
Well, Martha, the answer is yes. And The answer has everything to do with the fact that women in the United States of America, by the way, have a right to control their own bodies and make reproductive decisions. And the Mexico City Agreement, which denies American aid to those organizations around the world that are
perform abortions,
that allow women to have abortions, or even get involved in birth control, to me is totally absurd. So I think, especially in poor countries around the world, where women do not necessarily want to have large numbers of babies, and where they can have the opportunity through birth control to control the number of kids they have, something I very, very strongly support.
All right, there you go. Bernie Sanders, everyone.
I want to...
Climate change is such a danger, and you know what we could do? I got an idea. Oh my gosh, climate change, temperature, hurricanes, tornado. What do we do? You know what? What if we killed our kids? Yeah, that'll stop it. That'll fix it. We should just start killing our children so that climate change won't be a thing. I mean, come on, folks. Seriously, every time you think that the abortion crowd, like, they've gone as far, like, it's almost like to think, well, they're not going to go any further than this because, I mean, you know, they're just so far out there. They're talking about killing, they're talking about killing babies at 9 months. They're talking about killing babies outside the womb in some cases. No, they'll go further with your. I mean, give them credit for ideological consistency. The people on the left, man, they're devaluing human life. The value of human life, if it was a stock, I mean, it's plummeting right now. If you're a leftist, I mean, you really don't care about humanity, although they claim to, right? They claim to. Deal with climate change and you know, get birth control and abortions. That's how we're going to deal with climate change. I mean, come on. What is going on the left? Let me know what you think. Facebook.com/Conduit News. Sound off. Like us or follow us or subscribe to us, rather, on YouTube. Click the little bell to receive notifications at Conduit News. Back in just a moment.
I wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Was even nominated. There was a group on the left called Demand Justice, led by a former Hillary Clinton campaign flack named Brian Fallon, and they announced they were going to spend $5 million. They were outside the Supreme Court hours before Trump announced Kavanaugh's nomination to the White House. They were outside with professionally printed signs ready to go for whoever the nominee might have been. They actually had printed signs for different judges that could have been selected. And we've really never seen that kind of organizing around the courts before. But Demand Justice made a point of saying they want to build the muscle memory to organize around it. And now we're seeing them getting involved already in the 2020 presidential race and trying to push new reforms and other things to try to change the size and scope of the Supreme Court. And it's pretty remarkable to watch.
It really is. So, I mean, they effectively, what's interesting here, we're talking with Ryan Lovelace. He's the author of Search and Destroy, inside the campaign against Brett Kavanaugh. You know, we're an Arkansas-based news show, and
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Real quick, a few of your comments here. I thought we had progressed past human sacrifice to change events. This is Skip on our Facebook page writing this as he's watching the program. This is in response to Bernie Sanders last night at the CNN climate town hall, whatever they want to call it. Bernie Sanders saying that abortions can help stop climate change because of overpopulation. Overpopulation is hurting the planet, and so we need to, abortions and birth control. And so Skip is onto something here. It's funny. It's funny the absolute similarity. It doesn't matter if you are Bernie Sanders, have a northern accent. It doesn't matter if you're in a suit and tie and you pretend to be a civilized human being, or we look different than, say, the Mayans or the Aztecs that used to sacrifice people on top of ziggurats. We look much different. We don't have different culture, technology, but yet we will still, like Skip is saying here. Oh, and well, it's different now because we think that we've got science minds. We think, what do you think they thought? We got this big catastrophe coming, or we're going to battle, or we're going to war. Oh, quick! When we need, what if we do a human sacrifice to the gods, real quick? Yeah, this is all. Nothing is new under the sun in this case. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a more clear-cut example of what we're capable of and how the human condition is not something that is evolving and we're getting better over time. It's just we're just finding out different ways to articulate the same ideas. But yeah, we think we're civilized and evolved, and that abortion will do the trick. It'll stop this big event that everyone is terrified of. Not everyone, but some people are. Climate change or global warming. Too many hurricanes, too many tornadoes. Can you imagine how it's also very elitist, which many of these sacrificial societies of the past, they obviously worked off of an oligarchy, by the way, that told the citizens what to think and how to think and manipulated the facts that they were allowed to get. But you have any idea how elitist it is? Like, tornado comes through your town and your house is like totally destroyed. Your life is in ruins. And some elitist is like, well, if only you would have driven that SUV a little less. It would have cut down on carbon emissions. And that would have cut down on the air temperature, and that would have meant that the tornado wouldn't have hit your house and destroyed your life. Peasant. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.
Broadcasting from the Baker Implement Studios. Baker Implement, serving you with 11 convenient locations. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro.
Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas State Capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg was in Little Rock last night. She spoke at the Verizon Arena. A lot of people were there. And I think it's so interesting. We were going over Ruth Bader Ginsburg's, some of her papers that she wrote back in 1977 on equality and striving for equality, specifically when it comes to men versus women and gender equality. And I think, you pursue it so far that it leads to the kind of the culmination with the Brett Kavanaugh situation, where now all of a sudden, because it's a woman making an accusation against a man, he has got to be assumed guilty, and it's up to him to prove his innocence. I mean, I think it's very interesting, when you look at it that way.
It is, and I think your audience remembers, too, during the campaign, President Trump's campaign in 2016, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Ginsburg, had come out and talked about, the politics of his campaign, that she wasn't a fan. And she has since talked about, if there were different makeup of justices on the court, how different opinions would come out. And I think what we've really seen outside of the court is a politicization of it. So anytime that you have justices that kind of contribute to the conversation around the politics of things, it can only exacerbate things and make things more heated and more vitriolic. And I think one of the things we're going to see, is that continues. With Christine Blasey Ford, Justice Kavanaugh's accuser, at the time she was saying it was all about her civic duty. It wasn't about politics. It was her civic duty. It wasn't about going to the press. But afterward now, her attorney has admitted, at a conference at the University of Baltimore that actually Christine Blasey Ford's motivation, her client's motivation, was about Roe v. Wade and the right to have an abortion. And that's really something where we're seeing politics have a determinative effect on how all of this business of judging gets done.
Gosh, yeah, you're exactly right. So this was not your typical advise and consent process. So when did you know something was not right or not normal?
Well, I really think the first time that I picked up on things heating up was in the weeks leading up to Justice Kavanaugh's nomination. We began to see different groups start to organize. And then when there were the first set of hearings on Justice Kavanaugh's nomination before Christine Blasey Ford came forward, there was a PR firm working with these protesters that were supposedly spontaneously showing up at the hearings, and every time one would get hauled out and arrested, they would contact me as a reporter in the press and say, would you like to speak to this celebrity who was just arrested? The arrest count is now this large, and increasingly trying to show there's chaos and people don't like this. And I began to see how it was orchestrated and manufactured that way. And then by the time we got to Christine Blasey Ford's nomination, I started looking into, who her attorneys were. And they were out there the first day we heard that there was something out there, September 12th of 2018. They were saying,
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
So Pope County, welcome back, by the way. Hour number 2, welcome back. Pope County wants a casino, right? Well, no, they don't. Well, some people in the county judge, maybe, Pope County, justice of the peace, the JPs that are meeting when they're not supposed to be meeting. Who knows what the vote is now? Maybe some people have changed their minds since the constitutional amendment to put a casino inside the Arkansas Constitution, and for Pope County to essentially, like the rest of us, tell Pope County that they have to have a casino in their county. But anyway, the county is like, we're considering it. Let's just say that. The city of Russellville has essentially been kind of thumped on this. From what I can tell, they haven't really been involved in the decision-making process, and this doesn't set well with them. They've now been advised. By the way, this is a great headline by Jeannie Roberts. Russellville urged to get in game, dealt out city, advised to conduct own casino vetting. So Russellville's been dealt out of the whole decision-making process. It's really a county issue. The county government really flexing its muscle here. So that's because the potential agreements between Pope County and new casinos, Russellville has been excluded from the agreements, the potential agreements, and that they need to do their own vetting, make it open, make it transparent, choose the best option for such a business to operate in this according to a letter that was sent to Russellville Mayor Richard Harris. Ben Cross, the county judge of Pope County, however, said an endorsement from Harris or the Russellville City Council would be moot, meaning you don't have any authority, because Constitution, the Amendment 100, the Arkansas Constitution, requires endorsements from both the county and the city if the casino property is within the city limits. And this has now gotten, right now, the proposed casino is not in the city limits of Russellville. And so the city of Russellville is thinking of figuring out a way to annex that property. See what's going on here? It's a it's a fascinating example of how complex local politics can actually get. And the rest of Arkansas is just kind of watching. Let's see here. This also has to do with money, because there's an economic development agreement. Pope County really wants this. If they go through with their proposed, if they go through with the proposed deal with the Cherokee Business Nations, there's an economic development fee of an initial $38.8 million that the county's going to get. Now, they will not get this if the Quorum Court endorses any other casino license applicant. The money would go to the county and would be distributed amongst small communities and nonprofits. But listen to this. None of that $38 million would go to the city of Russellville, which is the largest city in the county. It's Very complex situation. And, oh, by the way, to give you an update on a transparent casino process down in Pine Bluff in Jefferson County, they've got everything going above board because they are all in agreement that they want a casino down there, and they have decided that they do not want a smoke-free casino. So it's, at least that's the last report I heard before I went on vacation, that they want a casino that has tobacco. Anyway, we'll let you, we'll keep you updated on this, but it's a fascinating situation developing out of Pope County and Russellville. Speaking of gambling, there's now an effort to collect signatures. The Arcade Arkansas Committee. Boy, doesn't that sound like kids? Doesn't it sound like you're marketing something to kids? The Arcade Arkansas Committee. Come on, don't call yourself the Arcade. That's something that's like putting kids on lottery tickets. That's like putting SpongeBob SquarePants on a lottery ticket, or I don't know, what do kids like these days? What's a favorite cartoon character kids like? Anyway, it's like putting your favorite cartoon character. The Arcade Arkansas Committee has started collecting signatures for a proposed constitutional amendment that would authorize coin-operated amusement machines, and this would mean that they would go to things like, convenience stores. And Arkansas Scholarship Lottery would be the one regulating and administrating this new, basically, kind of like slot machine. I mean, they're not slot machines, but you've seen these video arcades. Uh-oh, did I use the word arcade? But they're gambling machines. Let's call them that. To put gambling machines. Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, man. Like, what? A lot of people think that is still like such a good thing, and in terms of what it's doing. I mean, it may be good for your entertainment purposes. I'm not suggesting that, there's probably some of you out there that play and enjoy it or whatever, but in terms of a state-sanctioned lottery, and they use, what are these? Well, we're taking care of kids and scholarships. We're giving them scholarships to go to. Where does that money go? Well, most of it goes back to the government because you're paying state-run institutions. Does that seem weird to anybody out there? Oh, the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, we're going to essentially give you a game to play that is addictive. Not everybody's addicted, but it is an addictive game that we're going to, they promise that you're going to be rich and never have to work again, and we're going to take your money, which, by the way, a lot of people who play the lottery are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. So we're going to take that money, and then we're going to give it to children who want to go to state-funded and taxpayer-funded schools. Now, they don't have to go to a state, but a lot of people, most people go to state-run schools. Does that seem odd to anybody? It seems very circular to me. It seems almost like a tax, like a cloaked tax. Let's see here. Under their proposed amendment, so you're going to start seeing people collecting these signatures at your gas stations, at your DMVs. Let's see. If the committee, this is from Michael Wickline, by the way. If the committee obtains enough signatures of registered voters, the proposal would go on the November 2020 general election ballot. The proposal would require the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery to license 50 coin-operated amusement machines and any qualified operator applicant. Each machine licensee would be allowed to own and lease up to 300 machines to operator licensees. Each operator licensee would be allowed to make up to 10 machines available for commercial use and play by the public. So, the Arkansas Arcade Committee's chairman is William Beams, and he's the treasurer is James Johnson, one from Hot Springs, the other Searcy. Committee started collecting signatures Friday night. Quote, as of now, all of our canvassers are paid, but we will be adding volunteers soon. Said committee spokesman Jason Klein. Sponsors of proposed constitutional amendments are required to collect 89,151 signatures. Let's see. Okay, Jerry Cox is mentioned in this piece. Hang on one second. Well, hang on. Let's get to Klein's comments first. The amendment authorizes amusement machines currently legal under Arkansas law to be taxed at an elevated 20%. Oh, wow. We're going to tax it, with all proceeds benefiting the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery. Quote, in a time where college tuition and student loan debt are spiraling out of control, it's imperative that solutions be offered to fund college for all Arkansans. Under this amendment, these amusement machines would be licensed and regulated by the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, and redeemable prizes do not include cash but are limited to merchandise valued at less than $5 and lottery tickets. So you play and you get more lottery tickets. Klein said places such as Veterans of Foreign Wars Halls and American Legion posts will be able to offer these machines as entertainment and generate revenue to provide events for veterans. Okay, all right. So now that's one use for it. That is certainly one use for it. I mean, that's a great opening statement, by the way, because that's essentially saying a political, basically political choice architecture. If you're for these machines, you're for the troops. If you're against these machines, then you're against the veterans. That's what you call choice architecture right there. That's good. I mean, from a strategy standpoint. Everyday veterans across the state congregate as veterans organizations, and this will provide the funding for these organizations to continue to offer entertainment and events for those that have honorably served our great country. This proposed amendment would be an added benefit to help reach veterans in Arkansas. Asked how much the proposed constitutional amendment is projected to raise each year for the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, Klein said Tuesday, we haven't completed an economic impact study yet, but as soon as we do, we will release the findings. Family Council President Jerry Cox said in a written statement, that this proposed constitutional amendment, quote, will bring casino-type gambling machines into convenience stores and eating places all over Arkansas. It will turn the corner convenience store into a casino and create hangouts where people can gamble 24 hours a day. This amendment is not about helping students or veterans. This amendment allocates absolutely no money for scholarships or veterans. Instead, it turns all the money over to Arkansas's failing lottery. It allows up to 15,000 gambling machines with little or no oversight to prevent fraud. The state of Georgia has spent years trying to dig itself out of the crime these machines and their owners brought to the state. Asked for a response to Jerry Cox's remarks, Klein said, quote, I don't care to comment, end quote. Anyway, that's your gambling update today on the program. Stuff going on in Pope County. We now have a constitutional amendment that, well, we have signatures being gathered for a proposed constitutional amendment to allow coin-run amusement gambling machines to go into convenience stores and restaurants and things of that nature. So, again, I say to you, the audience out there, well, what do you guys think about this? Is this not a big deal to you? Do you care one way or the other? Is it something that you think is benign, or do you think that it is something? Now, I will say this, that the scholarship lottery, you mentioned, Jerry Cox there in that article saying that it's the failing scholarship. The fact of the matter is, I don't think that's a perception that a lot of people have. Now, failing, is it failing our families? I mean, have you ever seen somebody at a convenience store buying a bunch of lottery tickets, and you just kind of like, man, that's a lot of money to spend on some lottery tickets, You ever see somebody, I saw somebody once deny their son a candy bar in a convenience store and bought like $100 worth of lottery ticket. No, son, we can't afford it. And then now that's kind of weird, right? So it's certainly failing in that. That's going to happen. But is it failing in what it set out to do? The Arkansas Scholarship Lottery? I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like the scholarships. Again, it all seems circular to me. Can you even trust the government to tell you what a program is designed to do in the first place? Well, I mean, I would say with anything else, especially as conservatives, with anything else, if we were to say that there's a new government program out that's going to do X, whatever they tell us is going to do, it's going to be something, in a lot of cases, that's poll tested, and they're going to say, it's let's just say unicorns and rainbows in every house or whatever. It's something good, free something or this. It's going to be great. In the case of the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery, they're telling you it's going to put more people in college, put more people in school. Okay. But a lot of times when the government tells us what a program is going to do, it actually doesn't deliver on that and actually has a different purpose. We see this with legislation. A bill to increase the general happiness of the population. A lot of times you can assume the opposite of what the government says, very much like the mainstream media. There's a lot of cases where the mainstream media tells you this is the news, and if you'll just believe the opposite, in many cases you're actually getting the truth if you just take what they say and believe the opposite of that. That's the actual truth. So why would the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery be any different? That's my question is. They're saying that they've got, they're saying, well, we're successful. We're giving more money back to the kids than ever before. Yet they're being managed by a giant company that's making money hand over fist. I mean, in a lot of ways, the Arkansas establishing a state-run lottery, something that used to be illegal, by the way. Mobs used to do it. They used to run numbers. That was illegal. But establishing that, in a way, was kind of selling Arkansas out. It was selling the people out, in a way, to the lottery. You know what I mean? To the people who are going to manage the lottery and make all kinds of money, way more money than they give us back in scholarships. So again, you tell me, why would we assume? And have you seen the ads for the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery? I mean, the ads make it seem like this is like it's some sort of amusement park. Like, oh, I want to go there. And, they're doing these things now. They got this one promotion, this Arkansas Razorback promotion, where they're putting the University of Arkansas Razorback logo on the lottery tickets, which I think is strange because there's a lot of kids, right? There's a lot of kids. Are we going to really say that we want kids to grow up and gamble? Yes. That's what the government sponsored. You're taking a symbol that a lot of kids love and putting it on there. I mean, if we're honest, as a society, that's what we're saying, though. We need children to grow up, become 18, and gamble to continue funding this nonsense. Anyway. Have I ever bought a lottery ticket? Yes, I have. I've bought one. I'm not going to sit here and say that, anyone with standards, is going to fail at some point or yes, I have. But if you really think about it, it's just not defensible. I mean, if you really think about what we're doing with it, the message we're sending, it's really not something I think you can defend. But anyway, 870-275-9799, telephone number if you would like to contribute to the conversation. Let me know what you think about this issue. Coming up at the bottom of this hour, State Representative Dan Sullivan will be with us. Back in a minute.
I wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, You can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
They went, Deborah Katz, Christine Blasey Ford's attorney, testified before the House that, unless you rape 80 people, the Weinstein effect has taken hold and no one cares anymore. The press just doesn't care. And that's what really piqued my interest.
So, talk about that. You're a reporter. You're getting these requests, interview this person. The media here, the media whipped people. They whipped half the country. You even had people who were lifelong Democrats, that came out and said, this is not what I signed up for. I don't believe Brett Kavanaugh did this. They're treating him terrible. The media was really weaponized here.
It was, and what's really interesting, too, is this is the first time I think we've seen one of these kinds of orchestrated campaigns occur in a new media environment. When Justice Thomas was undergoing the Anita Hill hearing, there was talk radio, but there really wasn't the online new media ecosystem that was really deployed here against Justice.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the conversation. Barack Obama's brother, Malik Obama, tweeted this: "A rising tide lifts all boats, but not in Barack Obama's case. Buys a $15 million home and tells me to my face that he's broke. Slick as excrement, folks," is what he said. That is wild. Hey, folks, it's college football season. Did you hear about this? Yeah, college football season. Everybody knows about it. Joe, can you throw this video up there? Or not video, this, this article up there about the mascots. Every time college football season kicks off, there's always going to be something. What is this? From Campus Reform. So it's a college-focused website. Mascot Madness, school spirit symbols on the chopping block. Man, this is fantastic. And this kind of hits home, if you think about it. College mascots at colleges around the country are under scrutiny. From colonials to pioneers to Native Americans, many of these symbols of school spirit are on the chopping block. And this is, certainly this is something that Arkansas is familiar with. Arkansas State having to change their mascot from the Indians to the Red Wolves. But now it doesn't stop there. Now if you've got a mascot that resembles George Washington, you got to go. If you're a pioneer, that's offensive. If you're a Prospector Pete, the 49ers from California State University, Long Beach, that's offensive. Obviously, if you're still doing the Indian thing. If you're a cowboy, listen to this. In 2018, 24 professors banded together to demand that the University of Wyoming cease the use of its marketing campaign slogan, "The world needs more cowboys," because, as one professor put it, the word cowboy invokes a white, macho, male, able-bodied, heterosexual, U.S.-born person. So you can't be the cowboys anymore.
Kavanaugh. This was first.
I wanted to remind you that if you miss the daily live broadcast, you can always catch up and listen across our digital platforms on your smartphone or computer. First, you can watch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. From here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find our station. Conduit News is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. And now you know. You've got many options to watch what we do, listen to what we do, and find out what government is doing in your name. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Kavanaugh. This was first alleged at a blog on the internet at The Intercept, and then the larger news publications didn't have to actually bother to confirm any of the details of any of the allegations. It was just, how is this random allegation affecting things? And then they give it legitimacy, and then it gets amplified, and Senator Feinstein says, oh, yeah, I've heard that too. And then before long, it trades all the way up the chain to cable news, where folks are arguing back and forth about what this means and what that means. And no one's ever actually bothered to look into the news of this thing, whether or not this is true, whether or not there's evidence for this. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to do in Search and Destroy, was to uncover as much of this as I could. And then, in the back of the book, even, after I tell the story, I publish all the private emails of Christine Blasey Ford's lawyers to Democrats and to Republicans, so that folks can read it for them.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. You see on the screen here, we do have State Representative Dan Sullivan in studio. Dan, how's it going, sir?
Good to be here, Paul. I appreciate you inviting me in, and glad to have you back from vacation.
Absolutely, yeah. And just tell us real quick, how's the campaign for state senate going?
Well, it's a little bit slow right now. I am going to meetings with different groups and small group meetings. Would love to meet with any of your listeners in District 21. If they'd like to meet with me, be sure and just give me a call. I had meetings yesterday, have another one today, and several a day, usually just kind of hearing what the people think and what they're feeling and what issues are important to them. So it's going well, and we'll be cranking up really hard here about the 1st of October, scheduling more events and doing a few more things.
Yeah, because, we're getting kind of towards the end of this year, and then I guess, after Christmas, it's only a few months until the actual primary.
Yeah, in March. And, of course, there's things that spike activity. Walmart's recent decision and Moms Demand Action on guns sparks a lot of interest on Facebook and a lot of interest in discussion. And, my opponent supported Moms Demand Action, or they supported him in gun control and red flag legislation. So those provide opportunities for me to discuss the issues that are important to our district and our region.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that Walmart is now like the biggest supporter of local gun shops because of their decision to no longer sell handgun ammunition.
You know what? That's I hadn't thought about that, but unfortunately now we have our state government, our city government, going to get involved in a shooting range and take that business back away from our local local patrons, local businesses.
So talk about this. So early voting is underway in Jonesboro for a full percent or a cent tax increase, a sales tax increase.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on that? Half of it's for police and fire. The other half is for, well, we don't really know what the other half is for. We just kind of have a list of things that they might get to at some point.
Sure, and that's a really good point. My issue has been, Paul, that if the voters want to tax themselves, vote that way. If they don't, vote the other way. And my job as a state legislator is to educate people on how important being discerning in your vote, and what are the filters before you vote for or against. How do you filter your vote? For example, does it increase government or does it decrease government's power? Does it does it give the people the power, or is it taking the power away from the people? And a really good example of that, and a couple of things in this vote. One is the special election. I have strongly opposed special elections because it gives a very powerful special interest group an unusual opportunity to get their message out the way they want, to craft a message that allows them to pass a tax that normally may not pass in a general election. And I think you've seen the numbers, and I imagine most of your voters are familiar with the statistics, but I think something like 80% of our tax increases in the last, 10 years have come through special elections just like this. So one of the issues is, do you support special elections? And I think that should frame how you vote in this election.
Wow.
Because whether you're voting for it or against it, this is certainly a vote for a special election if the tax passes, which will then be a signal to small special interest groups who are very well funded. And I think this, the group that's supporting this, they're essentially a lobbying group. And they're a lobbying group that has raised well over $100,000 to pass a tax against the people that are on the other side of this issue. Probably have, I don't know what their numbers are, probably less than 10,000. But so again, a special interest, that's the goal of a special interest group, is to frame a special election, well fund, and market it. And I tell you what, they've done a great job of marketing their ideas and sharing with the public what the benefits are. Another foundational principle, I think, that we in state government try to do, and I thought we had in city government done a pretty good job of that, local government, but it's combining issues. This election combines two issues. The tax to help our fire and police that a lot of people favor, and then the tax for amenities that are out there, whatever they might be. They're combining those and giving people a sense that if I favor police and fire, the only choice I have is to vote yes on this. I really oppose that since we did that during the legislative session. The administration would combine a tax cut and a tax increase, and it was overall a tax increase. But and we did it with, I think 2 years ago with our veterans. We brought the veterans in.
The veterans were used as pawns
absolutely.
In order to get something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you didn't vote for it, then you were opposed to our veterans.
Exactly.
The same thing here. If you don't vote for this, you're opposed to our fire and our police. So I just think those are two big issues that I hate to see our local community being pushed in this direction, because those are fundamentally and foundationally bad ideas. Jefferson said, when the people and I can't quote him exactly, but he talked about when the people make the wrong decision. Our choice is not to take the people's power away, but our choice is to educate the people. And I see that as my responsibility in this election, is not to tell people how to vote, but to help educate them on what they're voting for. So if you are for combining these issues rather than separating them, and if you are for special elections, I guess we're going to see. But I guess the last thing we need, Paul, is now jump back to these special elections. People have learned, especially in Northeast Arkansas, the impact of special elections. We've defeated several of those recently in the last few years. And, I think people have gotten the word out that what these special elections are and how it's about a special interest group funding something that they want, and then you match it up and you can pass things. So I think our turnout can be pretty good. I just encourage everybody, whether you're for it or against it, let's get out and vote and let the voice of the people be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad. You mentioned special election, and that's something that I've definitely talked about. The Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, those numbers, the study they did from 1980 until a couple years ago. You've got a 76 or 77% chance of passing it in a special election, passing your tax increase in a special election, and that's when turnout is lower. And so definitely need to get out and go vote. The other thing, and this is something that I know that Team Jonesboro has said about special election, is that when the city council voted for the International Property Maintenance Code, there was a special election that was called to try to repeal that. But the difference there was it was a citizen-led special election where you had to collect signatures in order to do it. So, I think there's something to be said that if you're going to have one, that's a much better way to do it.
Our state law that we ran, Paul, did have exceptions, and there were things that were allowed. You can have special election under certain conditions, and we can talk about what those conditions might be. Let me bring up another point that really concerns me. You're hearing a lot now about private-public cooperation and joint ventures with the public and the private. I don't think our founding principles talk about our government being partners with the private sector. Government's job is not to invest in private business. Government's job is to create an environment where the private sector can grow. And when the government does that with shared things like roads and bridges and infrastructure, police and fire, when the government provides that environment where private businesses can grow, then the nation flourishes. Since 1776.
Yeah.
So we have been very successful with the private sector and the public sector, with the public sector, the government, creating an environment. We have been the most prosperous nation on earth ever because of our view of the private sector and the public sector. And over time, we know that government wants to grow government. That's its natural inclination is for government to increase and individual liberty to diminish. That's just been the way it is. So we have to guard that principle. And now we have people, I think our mayor has said he's really advocating, the Jonesboro mayor, is strongly advocating public-private partnerships. So I don't know what exactly he means by that, but what I hear is we're going to take public money and we're going to invest it in private enterprise, thereby allowing these kinds of things we're talking about, quality of life issues, the government's going to own those. That has not been the way we've grown. Jonesboro has grown tremendously. When I went here back in the 70s, the town has just prospered and grown. There have been recent studies come out about Northeast Arkansas. We're one of the fastest growing parts of our state. And now at the tax rates we had. And now we're going to increase our taxes. I had a really interesting post on Facebook. And by the way, people, I really appreciate your comments on Facebook. We've had some great discussions. I've ended up meeting with several people. And one thing we have done is foster great debate over freedom and economic issues. So I really appreciate that. But I had a guy ask me on Facebook, Dan, what if we could create a tax that would tax the people coming into our state and allow us to make money off of those people coming into our state? Would you do that? And I said, well, first of all, we've been trying to cut taxes to bring people into our state. And we've been very successful at that. You know, our governor has promoted tax cuts and how our tax cuts have brought people into our state, how we're trying to match our neighbors, Texas and Tennessee. We're trying to make our tax structure look more like theirs to bring money in. And so I responded to that post on Facebook. We're actually already doing that, not by raising taxes, but by cutting taxes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and people, you know, those are things, that's part of that filter I think people need to understand. And as you know, Paul, when you're up against a very powerful lobby, very powerful, well-funded lobby, it's really hard to get your message out. You know, in my races I've run, I'll jump back to my race, you know, I've battled against the most powerful, one of the most powerful lobbies in the state, in the medical lobby. Mm-hmm. They have increased cost. Every time we have an opportunity to reduce cost, they defeat it. They're a prime example of this public-private monopoly they've set up, that they take the public's money and their private money and refuse to allow scope of practice issues, refuse to allow the people choice. And it really concerns me when locally we head down that same trail that we're going to have this public-private venture. You know, I don't know exactly how I feel, but it bothers me when I see a group like Team Jonesboro, and I see the police chief and the fire chief out, and the athletic director for Arkansas State University out with a private entity promoting tax increases. You know, if they want to go out with our mayor and our city council and have that debate in front of the public, in a public forum, great. But when they join a private group and lobby for a tax increase with a private group like this, that just gives me a bad feeling. You know, Arkansas State built a tremendous football stadium with private money, and I applaud them for doing that. So why are they out trying to raise my taxes? They're raising their fees, they're raising tuition, and now the athletic director, who just raised millions of dollars to build a football stadium, is out there trying to raise my taxes. Folks, you know, I used to have season tickets to ASU football and basketball.
Didn't you? You played in the 70s, right?
I did. Thanks for reminding me.
Well, you're welcome. I think we should you should point that out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a big ASU supporter. ASU provided great opportunities for me, but they have outpriced the product for me. I can no longer afford to go buy a season ticket, so they lost my business. Now, this is a good example, I think. I hope your listeners can follow it. But this tax is going to cost me $100. That's the number they're putting out there. An individual impact is for a sales tax for an individual is $100.
A year.
A year, yeah, correct. Yeah. So that $100 I can no longer spend the way I want. That may have been to go to an ASU football game. So not only did they lose my season ticket, that now they're advocating a tax that I would have used to go to a football game. But folks, we are giving the government $18 million, $9 million for safety issues, police and fire, and $9 million for amenities. They're taking $9 million out of the pockets of the people. This is I know I've dominated the conversation here.
Well, no.
Let me throw one more thing in real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick. You know, one of the things they say is it's just a happy meal a month. It's just a happy meal a month. I've heard that almost at every presentation. Folks, it's a $9 million happy meal. That's the bottom line. a $9
A year.
million a year Happy Meal. And it's not just a little bit of change.
Yeah.
It's significant power that we're giving the government and taking away from the people.
We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. So can you address a little bit, real quick before we go, the two issues being combined is a problem. Police and fire. A lot of people want to support that. A lot of people want to give the police more funding, want to get the fire more funding, but they're not so sure about the amenity. But even on the amenity side, even if you just take the amenities by itself, I mean, I would much rather know exactly where the money's going to go. I mean, maybe I do want a pool. Maybe I want an aquatic center, a taxpayer-funded aquatic. Maybe I want that. Oh, I'd like to be able to go and vote for that, not vote for that and maybe this or maybe that. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand why they didn't do it that way.
Well, I do. I mean, if you want to market a tax increase, this is how you market it. Jonesboro has already built about $2 million on the shooting complex. We got the money from Game and Fish. We have a couple of years to finish that project. If we don't finish it, we have to repay the money. Mm-hmm. So we've already built some of the infrastructure for the aquatic center. So we've already invested in that. Now, what do you think the nonpartisan or unbiased committee is going to choose to do first?
Right.
Very high possibilities.
The shooting range and the pool.
Yeah, but they've done a great job in marketing this because everybody's going to get exactly what they want. I mean, it's almost like health care for all. Mm-hmm. You don't have to pay your medical bills anymore. You go to the hospital, you're fine. Everybody gets all they want. Instead of having it very clear and very specific, we're going to vote this up or down. That's the way it is in the legislature. It's why I voted against the highway bill. In order to hear another bill, you had to vote this one down. Same thing is true here. If you want to vote on up or down for the police and fire, the only way to do that is to defeat this bill. Now that, again, I'm not advocating for or against it. That's just the electoral process. Yeah. The only way to have other choices is to, vote something up or down. Again, the governor did that with the highway bill. Julie Mayberry had the bill that wouldn't have raised taxes. Yeah. And in order to hear that, we had to vote against the governor's bill. It appears that you're against highways. That's the way my opponent will say.
It appears you're against highways.
Yeah, Dan's against highways. I'm all for highways. I think that's government's job is to fund those. But we could have done that
without raising taxes on the people.
Yeah, and I think our lieutenant governor came out kind of for that idea and said, there are other ways to do this. Absolutely. And just to remind your voters, Paul, we've got a bunch of taxes getting ready to hit real quickly. Yeah. We got the gasoline tax increase coming.
October 1st.
We got the internet tax coming quickly. Mm-hmm. We've got the cell phone tax. Your listeners may not remember that. We have a cell phone tax coming. Mm-hmm. We have a water hike increase tax coming. Yeah. So we're facing not just this tax. Again, you get to a special election. Guess what? You get this done before people are really looking.
Before they realize their gas taxes have gone up, all these other taxes have gone up.
All these other taxes are coming up, and this is just one more. Yeah. So, again, I hope people will go vote.
Just go vote.
Go vote. Get people out, and I appreciate the opportunity here to educate people. And if anybody would like to visit with me about this, I love these discussions and debates. Had somebody thought that I was mad at other people, and I hadn't written anything, and I asked why they thought I was mad, and they said because you have the other position. And I said, look, these people and I were friends before this. We'll be friends after it. Iron sharpens iron, and that's the way our nation was built, on debate and persuasion. And that's what I want to do, is debate these issues and persuade, and I have confidence that the voters will make a good decision here. And if the voters choose to tax themselves, then let's move forward. If they choose not to, then let's look together and see what our path forward is to continue to make Jonesboro the best city in Northeast Arkansas and one of the best in our state and nation.
State Representative Dan Sullivan.
Thank
Always
you, Paul.
Great to talk to you, sir. All right, folks, we're going to take a break. Going to be right back with your meme of the day. Don't go anywhere. Hi, folks. I'd like to tell you about Conduit for Commerce. Conduit for Commerce is an Arkansas-focused nonprofit organization which receives no government funding. Its core beliefs are economic freedom, individual liberty, and limited government. Conduit for Commerce
believes those principles are foundational to all individual freedoms, and promotes these principles by educating Arkansans and your elected state officials concerning good government policies that will create a better life for all Arkansans. These traditional conservative values have proven throughout history to lift people from poverty, achieve individual desire, and assist in the pursuit of happiness. Conduit for Commerce operates on the basic belief that these principles and ideals of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing at each generation, especially today. Conduit for Commerce accomplishes this work only through the support and interaction of small businesses as well as individuals. Conduit for Commerce thrives from like-minded Arkansans' participation and partnership. It's only through the support of folks like you that Conduit for Commerce is able to be the conduit to the Arkansas state capitol. Help us continue as Arkansas's primary small business policy entrepreneur through your financial support. Join us by visiting conduitforcommerce.org. Once you're at the site, click Support Our Cause at the top of your screen. Your one-time or monthly donation will directly impact Conduit for Commerce's mission to promote liberty and economic freedom in Arkansas. Together, we can build a liberty machine. That's conduitforcommerce.org.
In full context and figure out, who was lying to you and who was telling the truth.
His name is Ryan Lovelace. The book, Search and Destroy, Inside the Campaign Against Brett Kavanaugh. You see it up there on the screen there, folks. Amazon.com, the page there. You can get it. Now, did you ever think during this process, Ryan, that he was done, he was finished, that they were going to succeed in torpedoing his nomination?
There was a time when I thought, after the allegations had been leveled and the markup had been delayed, the Judiciary Committee undergoes kind of, very technical procedures, and this first allegation came out the day before what's called a markup, where they would then proceed to a vote to advance it to the full Senate. And when Republicans started delaying things, and we saw Senator Flake, senator from Arizona then, who was on the committee, express some concerns, I began to wonder whether others would crumble and waver and all of that sort of a thing. But I really think in talking to folks on Justice Kavanaugh's team in the Senate, what really happened to kind of turn the tide and kind of return the sign to some of those Republicans.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here is let's go ahead and get to it. Here's your meme of the day. Meme of the day. Oh, by the way, Bernie Sanders said that abortion would help. Abortion in poor countries could help stop climate change, by the way. This is a great one. This is courtesy or by conservative.memes.v1. Hong Kong, they're waving the American flag. They're reading up on the founding fathers. This is something spray painted, what it looks like on a building on Hong Kong. It says, "Give me liberty or give me death," and that's what Hong Kong says. And the Chinese government then is essentially Saruman in the tower scene with Gandalf when Saruman says, "So, you have chosen death." We'll post it up at the Conduit News Twitter at Conduit News, as well as Facebook.com/Conduit News. We really appreciate it. Folks, this I'm telling you, this article here on different mascots being banned is pretty hilarious, and it just goes to show you that, again, the slippery slope people are correct. There's no appeasing the left. You've got a Native American mascot for your sports team, you change it to comply, right? Well, they're not done. Now they're coming for the Colonials. That's right. George Washington University, their mascot looks like George Washington. Ooh, and he's called the Colonial. But yet, they're upset because that has a deep connection to colonization. So the student body has said, we no longer want that mascot representing us. It's just a mascot that looks like George Washington. Can't be the pioneers, can't be the prospectors. Anyway, there's no appeasing the left. They want Civil War statues down. They don't want to stop there. They want the Jefferson Monument to be taken down. We'll see you tomorrow.
Broadcasting from the Baker Implement Studios. Baker Implement, serving you with 11 convenient locations. This is News Talk